because this now looks Arsenal's title all over, and Tottenham look like they can't carry the ball out of anywhere, and the difference that that guy makes is absolutely incredible.
Timber, Jurrien in this instance.
Merino was the one who dropped into the space in between the two lines.
You've just got two midfielders, which in the Premier League is not enough.
It's the sniffing of danger, and as I said, that space invader type of position.
What a day to be an Arsenal FC fan. 6 points clear at the top of the Premier League and an absolute whooping for bitter local rivals. Tottenham Hotspur 4-1 at the Emirates Stadium across the weekend. Liverpool nowhere to be seen. Chelsea apparently are their main title rivals. Surely they can't mess it up from here. I'm Will Pugh. That right there is Sun Sports tactical guru Dean Scoggins. This is the Tactics Exposed studio. Dino, is this going to be the most difficult morning of your life that you've had in this studio?
I feel much brighter for seeing you, and actually it was much more difficult watching the game over and over again last night as a Tottenham fan, obviously. But as the viewers know, I will park that. We're going to be talking about Arsenal brilliance and the tactics that really unlocked it as well. Obviously some brilliant individual performances, but tactics the winner.
Well, as always, Dino, you've got 5 tactical tidbits from the game that fans may or may not have noticed. What are they, please?
Yep, only one place to start. North London for Eberechi Eze. Amazing performance, but it was how that space invader trick and the space he found that was the key. Number 2, pick and mix. 2 Mikels, but this one's Merino and an amazing false 9 masterclass. Number 3, the other Mikel, the art of tactics. He said he worked out Spurs were going to play 5 at the back. Maybe he watched Team Talk before. But yeah, how they exploited that. Number 4, Timber, the fullbacks, right? The fullbacks for Arsenal were sensational and might have gone under the radar a little bit. And number 5, peer pressure. He didn't look under pressure, did he, Hincapie, when he filled in for Gabriel? And brilliant, another brilliant Arsenal performance.
I'm surprised, Dino, out of those 5, there's none on things that were bad about Tottenham. But this is one for the Arsenal fans, isn't it?
Yeah, let's park that, shall we? Yeah. I don't think the show could be long enough for me to discuss how bad Tottenham Hotspur were. But yeah, let's focus on the positives.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, there's only one main positive for Arsenal, of course. Eberechi Eze, a hat-trick in the North London derby. What a way to cement your legacy status with Gooners than to put 3 past Tottenham at home. Could have been 4 as well, late on, of course. Start with Eberechi Eze, Dino. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, you and I sat in the Transfers Exposed studio when this transfer happened and went from Tottenham to Arsenal, and we said at the time, I think it was your phrase, a sliding doors moment. And it really, really is, because this now looks Arsenal's title all over, and Tottenham look like they can't carry the ball out of anywhere, and the difference that that guy makes is absolutely incredible. And what I found really interesting in this one today was, or yesterday, sorry, was when we're watching this, what I found really interesting is that Eze actually drifted backwards into space again. And where in other games he would be on the front foot and carry the ball, you think that'd be counterintuitive. But what he's doing is watching a Tottenham back 5 drop off, and then he backs into that space to make the space in front of him, and that's where the goals come from. I mean, the first goal is a brilliant bit of interception play from Declan Rice, and he reads the game better than everyone else. But Eze, as Rice is coming towards the ball, is thinking, how am I going to score? And he doesn't go towards the goal, he comes away from the goal to give him that space, to give the little sidestep and play. So that was the first goal. And then the second goal, they manipulate a situation off the right, and we'll come back to Timber in a minute, who again was sensational in the game. And as Declan Rice crashes the box, as we talked about in the Team Talk show, Eberechi Eze makes this little sidestep backwards, and then he pushes out his arms as if to say, look, there's the space for me, right in front of me. Ball comes in front of him, goal. The finishing, look, is amazing. And then the third goal is the other way, where he's running into the space, where he identifies that there's the space that Mikel Merino has created. He leaves Pap Sarr for dead. He's left defenders for dead all afternoon. And then he runs into the space there. So that understanding of space, and not just that, the way that Arsenal are manipulating space for him is really impressive.
Well, tell us a bit more about that then, Dino. Give us a couple of examples, because again, this is one of those things which I find really interesting when they come up on Tactics Exposed, when you say things, well, I go, well, I learnt that sort of playing Sunday football when I was young, and spatial awareness and things like that. But like you say, lots of the time, where it's when you stop running is the clever move, isn't it? But in the Premier League at this level, it does require everyone to be working in unison to create that space for the danger men. How are Arsenal doing that?
Yeah, and it's an instruction from Arteta that if somebody runs into a space, there's got to be somebody else who runs out of it.
Right.
And that's the simplicity. It sounds simple, but as we keep saying in here, at 90 miles an hour in a Premier League game, in a North London derby atmosphere, that is not simple to do. So on the Eze goal in the second half, right after half time, it is Declan Rice who runs into that space. And Eze could have made that run. He's in a position where he could have made that run. But Declan Rice makes the first decision, so he goes. So Eze's decision is the good one, is not to go into the same space. So Romero gets sucked in by Declan Rice. You know, it's not bad defending because he's got to go and cover the run. But then Eze thinks, well, if he's going there, that space, which is very small to begin with, just opens up.
And isn't that the beauty, Dino, of that, exactly what you've described then about it's not bad defending. The sort of the impressive thing about the tactics you're describing when teams are on the attack is when they force a defender into a decision where he doesn't know what the correct thing to do is.
Yeah, absolutely. And Spurs found themselves, and we'll come on to this a second in the Merino one and in the back five, but because of that spatial awareness of Arsenal, that Spurs' back five didn't know whether to mark player or mark space.
Correct.
And the back five was split in half. It was like Udogie and Van der Ven were running after players and marking players, and then Romero, Danzo and Jed Spence were trying to hold the line and mark space. So they were absolutely all over the place, but it was because Arsenal just completely disrupted the back line with those runs, and then someone runs in, one run out, open the space up. Brilliant stuff.
So just quickly, Dino, what are you seeing from Eberechi Eze at the moment that sets him aside from his other Premier League counterparts?
Yeah, well, I think it's the sniffing of danger, and as I said, that space invader type of position where, you know, you've got to be. Let's look at Mo Salah so far this season, right? He's still getting loads of touches in the penalty area, but teams are crowding him out.
Right.
So he's not sniffing out space and sniffing out danger. Eze is. Eze's going, right, okay, if I go in there, I'm probably not going to score. I can go and make a run in there and occupy a defender, but I'm probably not going to score. So Arsenal, Arteta and Eze have turned him into the goal threat from that 10 position by everything else that they're moving around it. Amazing stuff.
Do you think as well then, Dino, that it is Mikel Arteta and him saying to, is it him what he's saying to Eze that he's allowed to go and do, or is it what he's telling everyone else to do, which is sort of bringing the best out in him?
Well, I think it was the final piece in the attacking jigsaw, and fair play to Arsenal for backing him in the summer, because Arteta is rigid in what he wants teams to do, and that seems a bit strange to say when they're so fluid in attack, but what I mean is that there are positions on the field that he wants you to take up, and the one that was missing was the player getting in that little area on the edge of the box and smacking it in the corner, and yeah, there he is.
He's your man. Is he going to win him the title then?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely, yes. There you go, Arsenal fans. That's Tottenham fan Dean Scoggins telling you that Eberechi Eze is bringing the Premier League title to the red half of North London. Dino, point number 2, pick and mix. Mikel Merino and his false 9 masterclass. This is a man who, when played up front for the first time for Arsenal, everyone in a red and white persuasion, up and down, whoever they supported in the Premier League, or in fact any of the teams in England went, eh?
Yeah, I think again though we should point out the brilliance of Mikel Arteta here, and in understanding a position, and whether it's the attack coach and Arteta, a combination of those obviously. But Kai Havertz,
the set piece.
well, mate, he must be involved somewhere. Yeah,
he?
I mean, he'll be bouncing around somewhere, won't he? But yeah, they did it with Havertz as well, right?
Yep.
You know, we've forgotten about Kai Havertz almost because of this. And look,
less surprising that one though.
Yeah,
with
a
Havertz,
little bit.
at least he was an
but they're
attacker.
both a sort of left-sided, you know, midfield midfield player who knows how to get in the box and get on the end of crosses, right? But what they're doing is they're using him to do a role. Look, if he scores a header from a set piece or a cross, then great, crash the box again, that's it. But this is an understanding again that he's not going to be the one that beats one of the centre-halves with his feet, okay? That's not going to be him. It's going to be the way Arsenal are going to attack it is Trossard cutting in off one side, Saka cutting in off the other, and then Rice and Eze bombing past. So what he's doing, Mikel Merino, I mean, some of the movements I wish that we could have had almost like a drone camera following him around across the field, because what he's doing is dragging out of a position, and then because the Spurs back five, as I said, was so reluctant to jump and go out, what he's then doing is opening up this gap between the Tottenham back five and the midfield two. And obviously, if there's only two midfielders, that makes it very hard for Palhinha and Bentancur to do anything about it. And then, as I say, Merino notices, right, Saka's coming off the right wing. So Merino goes, well, I'll go over to the right wing. Right. I'll be the one who receives the ball. And then I'll look, because of the space I've opened up, Saka's inside there, so I can give it to Saka. That is a plan. That is from the tactics room. That is from Arteta on the training ground to say that they won't follow you out because they don't want to disrupt their back line. So therefore, go and double up on the left back. And poor Destiny Udogie, I mean, I am a big fan of his anyway, but he had Saka to deal with Saka hugging the touchline. He had Jurrien Timber to deal with, and then Mikel Merino comes over into that space as well. And Udogie didn't really know where to go, and Odebear in front of him was as good as useless as a defender. So it just... Arsenal worked that out. They hammered that right side again, as we've talked about, but it was Mikel Merino deciding when to come off the front line and be the one to receive the ball. And when Spurs decided that they could press, which was probably 3 times in the first half, that then Merino was the one who dropped into the space in between the two lines. So it was like an old school number 10 performance in receiving the ball. And then when Spurs got into those two lines, unselfishly he goes, I'll go over there, create that little triangle and allow Eze, allow Saka and allow Trossard and Rice to go beyond him and be the goal threat. So he wasn't really a goal threat in the game. And that was almost the genius of his performance.
Well, you said earlier on today, Dino, of course, that Mikel Arteta, didn't he, after the game, had said, kind of admitted that we kind of guessed that Tottenham would play a back five. An educated guess nonetheless, and as you said, he probably watched Thursday's episode of Tactics Exposed Team Talk previewing the game, But that's exactly what you said, right?
That was a joke, all right? That was a joke before you jump in the comments. Yeah.
One of the questions we had on the Team Talk show was, like, are Tottenham just going to park the bus again effectively? You sort of spoke around how you felt they were going to set up at the back five as well. Arteta obviously felt the same way. Do you think then the use of Merino, or the inclusion at all of Merino, was based on that educated guess from Arteta?
Yeah, I do. And I said that, in Team Talk, I said that we were unsure about Gyökeres's injury status and whether he'd be available. And I felt that they should play Merino, from an Arsenal point of view, they should play Merino regardless of whether Gyökeres is fit, because I think that Gyökeres running the channels is what Van der Ven and Danzo and Romero are good at and want to do. Yeah, it does play into their strengths a little bit. And although Gyökeres can open up space by doing that, when you play a back five, if your right or left centre-back get dragged across, you've got another centre-back to cover. So Merino dropping into that hole was much, much more dangerous for Spurs. And there's one very good grab where Merino's in the space, he comes deep into the space, and Eze's going to attack the ball, and so is Trossard, and then so is Rice. And the Spurs back 3 centre-backs are not marking anybody. And you think, well, hang on a minute, there's overloads everywhere else then. If there's 3 defenders not picking anyone up, then Merino has masterfully made it so that there's overloads everywhere else.
Yeah, well, from back 3 to point 3, Dino, I think I may have sort of overlapped somewhat
yeah.
with this. The art of tactics, Mikel Arteta, we want to talk about here. Exactly, I've kind of alluded to it already, how he predicted and then dealt with Tottenham's back five, plus all the other cunning tricks.
Yeah, so when
that he did throughout the game.
Yeah, and when you think Spurs are going to play a back five, they did it against PSG very successfully in the Super Cup, and but for a bit of Spursiness at the end, would have probably been, won the Super Cup after being 2-0 up.
I thought you'd shed that tag last season.
Not anymore. Yeah. Can we talk about Bilbao again? No, let's not. Right, but what it is that against PSG, when they set up like that, Spurs struggled to get out. Yeah. Like, even though they were very good defensively, and obviously they scored from set pieces when they won them, they struggled to get out up the field. So what you'd think from
is in the back five.
This is in the back five
Yep.
setup. So in that game, they played 5-3-2. So they played a midfield of Palhinha, Bentancur and Sarr, and then they had Kudus up front with Richarlison. And in that, they struggled to progress the ball to the front two. And when they did get the ball to the front two were very isolated. So what Arteta has worked out, that the progression of this for Spurs, and they actually played Odobert instead of Xavi Simons, which I expected to be the other way round. But it's Kudus and Odobert playing off Richarlison. So the idea being that the ball goes up to them, and then those two sort of buzz around and try and pick up the second balls. Arteta's worked this out. So, all right, we'll come on to the attacking in a minute, but this is really key because Saliba's not brilliant in the air. We've talked about that. Richarlison's worse, okay? Yeah. So those two were always going to be the battle. Spurs were going to try and make Richarlison hit Saliba, okay?
Yeah. Gabriel's, I know he didn't play in this game. Gabriel's aerial
exactly,
guy usually,
yeah. So, but they go in there. So what Arteta has said is, park a fullback in front of the centre-back. Okay, so we'll see it with Timber in one of the grabs in a moment. So therefore, even though Richarlison's thinking I can hold him off and have the ball into feet, nope, someone drops in front. And then the occasion of Eze's hat-trick goal it was, then the ball goes forward again, Saliba and Richarlison together. And in that instance, there are 3 Arsenal players ready to win that second ball. So it's a preparation for a Spurs tactic. So he's completely sort of demolished that idea of Thomas Frank. And then you go back the other way then, and that means there's only 2 midfielders. Because if you're playing for Tottenham, if you're playing like a 5-2-3, so then where is the space? You get the 2 in the middle who are going to try and protect the back 5. The space is either side of those 2. And that's what Arsenal manipulated, with Merino dropping in one side and Calafiori coming from left back into the other side, to have those pockets of space where the Tottenham wing-backs can't come in because they've been pinned by either Timber or Saka one side and Trossard the other. And so that little manipulation of space. And basically what he said in his post-match interview was, we had an hour from when the team sheet comes out to then say, look, we thought this would be the case. We've planned for it. These are the things we're going to do to manipulate it. And Tottenham took until half-time to then adapt to that and change their formation. And then, of course, the third goal goes in, game over.
Yeah, I suppose it's interesting, isn't it, with those 5 at the back systems, or 3 at the back, with the wing backs, like Manchester United and Ruben Amorim tries to do, right? Where the wing backs also double up as midfield players as well. But exactly as you've described there, if you're playing against a team like Arsenal, whose attacking talent is so much, and they're able and brave enough to commit men forward in serious numbers, like 6 players up front at some stages, all of a sudden, you haven't got the 4 midfielders with the 2 hybrid wing-backs. You've just got 2 midfielders, which in the Premier League is not enough.
Yeah, and as I said in the Tactics Team Talk show, we talk about that 2-3-5 shape or 3-2-5 shape. Yep. Arsenal were very clever in manipulating that depending on which side of the field it was, which meant they pinned the fullbacks, which means Tottenham's 3 centre-backs haven't really got anyone to mark, which means you're probably 5v3 in the midfield area, which is why it was such domination.
Yeah, it's basically Arteta dictating where the game's going to be played, isn't it?
Yes.
And go, well, we won't play it in the area where Tottenham are strong and got lots of players. We'll play it in the area where we have, if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one point on Tottenham, as I said, I wouldn't be talk too much about Tottenham, but
I'm more than happy for you to do some
I'm
of
sure
it.
You are. But the way that Tottenham should have adapted that in the first half should have been to say to Romero as the spare man, you go with Merino. Just go and follow him. Do you remember Fabian Schär did it with Declan Rice at Newcastle? We've talked about it a few times. Liverpool have adapted this. Manchester City have adapted this.
Luke Shaw recently.
Luke Shaw did it for Manchester United, and so did De Ligt against Chelsea, where they go right out.
Up to the opposition's penalty
exactly.
area.
Wherever he goes, you go out. Because if you think Romero steps out of the back line and marks Merino, probably Merino's not going to receive the ball if he's got Christian Romero breathing down his neck. Definitely. And then Spurs have still got a back 4. And then they've still got 2 centre-backs there to cover the runners. They didn't adapt to it, and fair play to Arteta. He's watching it unfold in front of his eyes and going, yep, it's working, lads. Just keep going. Keep going.
Right, point number 4, Dino. Timber! Jurrien in this instance. Arsenal's fullbacks, both of whom were outstanding, but this man in particular.
Yeah, I mentioned Calafiori and the positions he took up, and it felt, I mean, when I was watching the game live, I felt that Arsenal are dominating this right side. And when I watched the game back again, it was like, yes, even more so. So Calafiori did a great job in making sure that Jed Spence's position was very, very difficult. So Spence couldn't push up because Calafiori was pushing him back, and then also in a defensive sense, just again, I'm trying not to do too much Tottenham here, but Jed Spence for the first goal was an utter disgrace. Like, he's the right back, and because Calafiori goes into outside of in that position, he thinks, oh, maybe I should go and drift to him. No, Trossard's running inside you, so you've got to track the runner. So Arsenal's fullbacks were involved all the time, be it up the outside in pinning, as I said, pinning the wing-backs back and providing the width, or if the game went to the other side, one of them went into invert, either as a back three or as in a 10 position. They were everywhere. It was absolutely, as you say, I think Timber's the best fullback in the league at the moment.
Whoa.
And just can't see anyone on his level. You know, him and Saka is without doubt the best partnership in the league in any two-man position. And it was underlapping runs. When Saka went out to the touchline, Timber went up the inside, and there was a lovely little move in the build-up to the first goal that happened with. And then when they actually scored, Timber's the one in the 10 position. So he's seen that Saka's gone wide, and he's seen that Merino's dropped deep. So he goes, no, Mikel wants someone in there. So in there he goes. And it was just all action. And then obviously the goal slightly just after half-time. It was him being a nuisance and winning his duels. And, you know, he just won, he won every duel really that he was involved in. It was fantastic, and he understands. Clearly he has Arteta in his ear, and so does Calafiori for half the game each. You know, they're right there, but they simply understand that Saka's allowed to be fluid, Merino's allowed to be fluid, Declan Rice is going to bomb forward, and so Zubimendi will be the cover man. So whoever one of those three players around them moves, they have to move into that space to then play from there. And they're not just occupying the space, they're playing in that space, which is the key. And look, you know, Spurs were cones and Arsenal just played around them.
Absolutely, Dino. Proving your theory, as you've discussed on Tactics Exposed plenty of times over the last 18 months or so, that fullbacks are probably the most important positions in most Premier League teams these days.
In a tactical setup, absolutely.
Exactly, yeah. Point number 5 though, Dino, centre-backs are also quite important, particularly for Arsenal. Mikel Arteta's Arsenal. Piero Hincapie stood in manfully for Gabriel, and you were very impressed.
Yeah, we debated whether it would be him or Mosquera in the build-up, and I suspected it'd be him because of the left side balance, and then you don't have to move Saliba out of his position as well. And, you know, there was a bit of a debate about whether it would be Calafiori or Miles Lewis-Skelly to you know, if you're going to bring a new guy into centre back, do you bring then Calafiori's been brilliant by the way, but do you bring a more defensive player into that left back position to sort of help him out? He didn't need it. He was absolutely excellent aerially on the ground. His starting position, obviously he's been watching Gabriel, so that's a great person to learn from. But also he had this little instinct where when Saliba went for that header with Richarlison or went to press in, he's got that defender's instinct where where's the ball going to bounce? I don't just mean come in and behind and cover. That'd be the very simple thing playing at our level that you'd do. If Richarlison's going to head it that way, your instinct is to go there and win the second ball. And he's got that sort of sniff danger defensively about him. On the ball, the biggest compliment I can pay is I didn't notice him. So yeah, that is excellent. Yep. Didn't give it away, gave it to the fullbacks in the right position, and then Zubimendi's there. So don't do anything complicated, lad. Just give it to Zubimendi and Rice. That's your job. And he was excellent. I mean, he probably came off thinking he could play another 90 minutes because Spurs were so dull. But you know, that's a credit to him as well. And look, they will always miss Gabriel, and he's going to have a bigger test this week with some guy called Harry Kane coming with Bayern Munich. But what a great first performance, and he played. Obviously not as big a role as Eze, but as a team, he played a full role in what Arsenal did.
Absolutely, Dino. Great stuff as always, mate. Thank you very much, you lot, for watching. Arsenal fans, I'm absolutely certain you enjoyed that one. Like, comment and subscribe to the channel, of course. And make sure you are back for Tactics Exposed Team Talk this Thursday, when Dino will be back looking ahead to Arsenal's trip to Chelsea. First place, second in this Sunday, Super Sunday fixture. Thanks for watching. See you then.